Hey, it's me, Kati. So what are the housing options that empty nesters have who live on the North Shore of Chicago? I will tell you there are not many. It is a very difficult situation and scenario for people who want to downsize. So first off, why don't we start with what are empty nesters? Empty nesters is kind of just a term that used to be where kids leave the home and then they don't have anybody else there in home, so that's the empty nesters. So I view empty nesters as really being like people like maybe 52 and up to about like 75 or so. So it's kind of a broad range. It doesn't really necessarily mean empty nesters. It just means that age range of those people, pretty much 52 to 75. So I'm going to talk specifically about Northbrook because I just know Northbrook so well since I've been here my whole life, but this does pertain to a lot of the suburbs in the surrounding area as well. People in Northbrook, there are a lot of families who have lived here for 30, 40, 50 years and they've raised their children and they've lived in the same home for 30 years. A lot of times it's going to be a colonial with a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath house that is, just a nice home with a nice yard. Now, we're not talking people who are super wealthy. We're talking people that maybe their main asset is their house. So when you talk about people being affluent, that's not necessarily what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about people who have lived in Northbrook, who have paid money in taxes, who have sent their kids to the school, who have donated their time and the effort to this community. These are the people I'm talking about. Not talking about super wealthy people. I'm not talking about people who can't necessarily afford a house either. I'm talking about the tried and true residents who have made Northbrook what it is. So these people have lived here for so long and their houses are exactly the way that they want it. Now the houses might be dated, but they love it. They love their design in their homes. They love their furniture. They love everything about it. And they've taken care of their homes over the last couple of years. So that's exactly what they're looking for. Now they're not going out when they're saying, we need to downsize or we need a different house, we need a bedroom on the first floor. They don't want to sacrifice on the quality of what they're going to get. When they're looking at homes that are out there, they're finding a real lack of options that's sort of transferable to what they should move to. And I'm going to talk about those in a second. But these homes maybe, that they're coming from are maybe like, $600,000 to $800,000 or $900,000. And so that's, kind of the money they have to spend. They don't want to spend more than that. And taxes are continuing to go up, so they want their taxes to be lower too. So they're really struggling trying to find options out there. And I think when I'm talking about empty nesters, what you have to understand is that these are not people who need senior housing. And for some reason, that seems to be the only thing that is going up in Northbrook is senior housing. And so I don't really understand that methodology or that idea because you have a whole segment of people from 50 up to 80 who have no place to transition to. And when those people don't transition out of their homes, it means there's no inventory for new people to move into Northbrook as well. So let's talk about the different options that an empty nester can go to, why they work and why they don't, and what is actually out there. So when I'm working with somebody, and they're saying, we want to downsize, I take a deep breath and I say, oh boy, this is going to be tough. It's really hard to find things that compete with the quality of the home that they're living in. So the first place they could look is a condo. Now there are condos everywhere. However, the condos aren't going to give these people who are in these colonials what they're used to as far as size and as far as outdoor living space. So there are limited condos that these people would be interested in going to. In addition, assessments can get really, really high. So while they are trying to reduce their costs and their taxes, now with the assessments and the taxes, it's actually going to go up. That's why condos aren't great in the North Shore for people who are in the 50 to 80 year mark. Now, if somebody is looking to literally go to something simple and easy and they are maybe 70 and up, that is when it might make more sense because they're older and maybe they really truly don't need that much space. So that's why it's hard for empty nesters to find condos because they're not finding the size that they're looking for, the size that they're accustomed to, and they're not seeing the outdoor living space, and their assessments are much higher and they're not actually downsizing. So a lot of times what people will say to me is, we want to ranch in an association so we don't have to take care of the landscaping and the snow. We're tired of it, but we want a ranch. Now, the thing with a ranch, you're going to have the primary bedroom on the first floor. So it is going to end up taking up the square footage of a ranch. So that's one issue in moving into a ranch home, is that you have less living space. So a ranch that has 3,000 square feet is going to have less living space on its first floor than a colonial that has 3,000 square feet, because you kind of divided that out a little bit. The ranch takes up the space on the first floor. It's laid out a little bit differently. So what will happen is people are like, oh, we want a ranch, and then they'll go in and see the ranch houses and realize that the living space is actually super, super small and they're really tight. So a 3,000 square foot ranch is a big ranch. So what I'm saying is there are very few associations that actually have 3,000 square foot ranches. You just really can't find them. So then these people are then now saying, oh, well, maybe we need a regular single family ranch. The issue with single family ranches is that they're bigger, and so associations aren't making those, and so they're regular single family ranches that you find next to the colonials. The issue is those are going for a premium because you do have people who do have cash who do want to make that ranch their own. So those aren't actually downsizing ranches. Now, you do have small ranches, like maybe in downtown Northbrook, and these are older homes. These are like from the 50s or 60s, but all these have a one-car garage. So while you might think, oh, I'm going to pay $500,000 for a ranch, you can't find them. You're going to find a one-car garage with 3 bedrooms and maybe 1.5 bathrooms. So it's not going to be the quality that these people are used to. There's just not an opportunity for somebody who's in a $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 home to move into a small ranch. It just doesn't really exist. So this problem is actually across the whole North Shore. While I'm in Northbrook, I'm not specifically talking only about Northbrook. I'm talking about the lack of opportunities for people who are in that 52 to 80-year-old range. There's not a lot for them to go to. I'm not talking about affordability. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about literally there are just no homes for these people to actually move into. So what do these people do? They wait. They are staying in their homes much longer, which then in turn, what I said, eliminates the turnover because they're trying to figure out how to stay in their homes longer. They don't have a place to go to. So a lot of times what's happening is these people are moving out of state because they literally don't have a place to go. Now, a lot of these people have children in the area and they are desperately trying to stay here, but they're frustrated. They just don't have a place to go. So let's talk about a solution for this. Gosh, it's tough to really talk about a solution. And the reason why is because there's not a lot of opportunity to build new homes in an affordable way for people. And again, I'm not talking affordable housing. I'm not talking about being able to provide housing for low-income residents. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about affordable for people who have spent their whole lives on the North Shore, people who spent dedicated their whole life to the town, to the community, to the stores, to the restaurants. There is no opportunity for these people to stay in our own town. And so now when we talk about affordable housing, I'm going to talk about the affordable housing mandate that the Village of Northbrook has put in, which is actually causing an issue in helping these sellers who have lived here for so long stay in our own community. So there has been a parcel of land in Northbrook that is able to be developed for exactly what I am talking about. Exactly that I'm talking about. It is the Green Acres Country Club old plot of land. It's 53 acres. It sits right north on Dundee and it's east of Waukegan. It's a huge parcel of land that has been in flux for years. And the reason it is in flux is because of the affordable housing mandate in Northbrook. I'm not going to talk about the politics of affordable housing mandates. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the actual ramifications that this policy has on building this parcel of land to supplement for our residents in Northbrook and the North Shore. The issue is that the mandate says that 15% of all homes in Northbrook, if it's a development, have to be affordable housing. But when you think about what that means, it means that for every 10 homes that are built, 1.5 has to be affordable, or the developer can provide money to the village to put into their affordable housing coffers, essentially. That could be quite a bit of money. What you're doing is you're asking the developer to cover the affordable housing cost. Fine. Whatever you want to think about affordable housing is fine. That's not what I'm talking about here. I don't want to get all these comments talking about that. What I'm talking about is that there are very few developers that can actually cover those costs and make a profit on what they're building. That's the issue. The other issue is this village board is very, very hung up on density and making sure it's not too dense, which means the developer cannot build enough homes to cover the affordable housing mandate. There have been many, many developers that are willing to do that are willing to do the 15%, but then their hands are tied because the village board is saying, can't be dense. We want you to donate this space for open space. They physically and monetarily cannot do that. They cannot financially make this work. So that's the main issue with this, is that while the ideas are good, we want to have affordable housing in Northbrook. We don't want it to be too dense. What it's doing is it's pushing our own residents out of this town and out of the state because there is nothing for them here. So when we talk about density, I agree. I mean, we don't want, more traffic. We don't want more kids in the school that are taking away from the tax base. These are all the arguments that you're going to hear. I'm not really talking necessarily about that, but I want to talk about a community that is very, very dense currently in Northbrook that is fantastic. It's fantastic. It's Ancient Tree. Now, Ancient Tree is at the corner of Landwehr and Walters. And so it's been around since the 70s. And I love Ancient Tree. And one of the reasons I love it is because the assessments are pretty low. So if you're in a townhome or a single family, you're looking at like a $250 to a $300 assessment. It is extremely dense in Ancient Tree, but it's a beautiful place. They've got a pond, they've got tennis court. The association does a wonderful job of keeping up Ancient Tree. And you have a community there. Now, it doesn't draw a ton of kids, even though there's no age restriction. It just doesn't. So as far as the school issue, it's just not set up to draw a lot of kids. Now, they do have more kids that come in there recently in the past, but it's not a great place where people are having all their kids run around in the area. Just there's not a lot of kids. It's really more empty nesters. Now, they have homes. They have regular townhomes and they have ranches, and they have single families with second story master bedrooms and first story master bedrooms as well. So there are a variety of different options. In addition, they have condos there, and the condos are generally the much older 70 to 80-year-old and up residents. The townhomes are more, you can get 50-year-olds moving into Ancient Tree and they have a community there. I just want to get the idea that just because somebody's trying to downsize means that they're old and infirm, they need help and they need senior living. They don't. They want a place to stay in Northbrook. They want a place to stay where they've raised their family. They just can't find anything that is affordable for them. So when we talk affordable housing, we are just not even looking at our own current residents to put them into a location in the town that is affordable for them. It's a very frustrating thing as a real estate agent watching what is going on in this town and the ramifications of the affordable housing mandate on our own residents. So let's talk now about what are some possible solutions to go on the Green Acres parcel. The best development that has been proposed was the very first one where it talked about single family homes. And those would have been a great option, some single family, some townhomes. The issue was that the village wanted to make them less dense. So therefore the developer could not make it work with the affordable housing mandate. It just wasn't going to work. If the village still wants to enforce the affordable housing mandate, the only way this is going to work is to make the property more dense. And I do think using Ancient Tree as a model, which is a beautiful development, like I said, with low assessments, I think there is something there. I think something can be done. So the single family homes that would be there, I envision them to be maybe like 2,200 square feet, a ranch with a 2-car garage, because that's key. Now, some of them might have a basement and some of them might not, but these prices really need to stay somewhere in the range of under 700. If they're not under 700, again, you're going to start pricing out the people in Northbrook who can afford to live there. So again, that's why you need to make it more dense. Now, the other thing that could happen, which I think might work, is that if they put a condo development at the very, very back of the acreage up against the tollway, and they allowed it to be higher than they have on some of the other developments, and they make these a little bit more like luxury condos, I think that what would happen is that you get a lot lot of empty nesters who would buy those to use when they're here for the summers, because you get some people who do want a snowbird, and if those are high enough quality, I do think those people might be interested in staying in those condos. Now, that would have to be a discussion with the developer, but again, if you don't allow enough density, then the developers can't afford to make the affordable housing work the way that the village wants. So right now, I don't know what's going to happen with this property, but I have sat back on the sidelines for too long as a real estate agent watching our residents suffer because they have no place to go. And that's been really painful to watch the village try and mandate something for people who live outside of our town when we're not first looking at our own residents. And what do they need? What do residents on the North Shore need? And they do need affordable housing for them. And so now that this deal has fallen apart numerous times, I'm hoping there's going to be more of a look at what do we need? What will actually sell? That's really important because you don't want to build a bunch of homes that aren't going to sell. And this is why the village needs to get input from the real estate community and real estate agents. And what does the market look like? What are people going to pay? Because I could have told you downtown Northbrook with those townhomes that they built there, I could tell you those were going to be a tough sell. And I sat down with developers before they bought that parcel. I sat down with 2 different developers and I said, if you cannot keep these at $599, you're not going to be able to sell them. In addition, a 4-story townhome in downtown Northbrook is going to be a tough sell. Now, the village board went ahead and just approved the plan the way that they approved it, which is fine, and I think the development looks nice. I sold somebody in there, but you have to look at what is the market willing to bear. You can't just build it and they will come. So it's really not just looking at the side of the developers or the affordable housing people. It's what is the market looking for? What do they need? And in this video, I've said what the market needs. I am hoping somebody listens to this and says, you know what our village needs? It's a combination of working with all the parties and not discounting the developers, because if they're doing the affordable housing, they have to be able to make money. So I don't think I've seen any developers who have just said, we're definitely not doing that. They want to work with the village. Let's make this work for the village. We don't need another senior living community. We need something that services our residents on the North Shore and especially in Northbrook. If you know, you know.